edition of the Bullheaded Podcast. I am your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peepers. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, man. It's a beautiful time of year for sports, man. The beginning of baseball season. I know Zoo's on the edge of his seat pretty much every day for the next 6 months, man. But on top of baseball, of course, we got a little NBA playoffs, NFL draft coming up too. So I'm getting excited, man. Summertime is slowly approaching here in the Midwest.
Man, stop it, man. First of all, baseball ruined my FanDuel, man. Every time I open my FanDuel app, I see baseball promos the entire time.
Yep.
No, thank you, man. I have to now scroll down to my NBA playoff betting, man. So, no baseball, D-ball time, prime time. We got some single game elimination games coming up. Playoffs, top 6 seeds are set in stone. So, let's go, baby. I'm ready for the NBA playoffs, man. I am so ready.
And we are definitely going to get started with the play-in, which I was resistant to it at first because with any type of, I guess you could say overriding change, people are going to be like, oh, well, I wonder how this is going to shift viewers and all this type of stuff. But I think for the most part, it's been pretty positive, and it's got a lot of teams that normally are on that fringe, a reason to compete. And now we have the play-in in the West and the Eastern Conference. So I wanted to start with the West and start with those two games. And I think the big lead story here was if any of you guys were watching the NBA this weekend, we saw a couple of mishaps with the Clippers and the Timberwolves who are in the play-in. And I kind of want to get the guys' thoughts on that game between the Lakers and the Timberwolves and how you think that affects that current play-in game. And Peter, Sean, I'll let you take the first crack at it.
I mean, we all know Rudy Gobert. Come on, man. I mean, we could talk about the 4 first-rounders all that we want. I actually find it more of a fit issue. Obviously the value that they gave up was ridiculous, and I think we could all agree that there are only maybe a handful of players in the league that are worth 4 first-rounders to pretty much upheave your entire next 5 years, really, right, of your franchise. And it was made by a GM who had some stake in the company, man. So he was trying to earn himself a nice little profit. What are you going to do? But, I think that his inability to open up the lane for Anthony Edwards is really the bigger problem of the Gobert trade. It's just the fit aspect of it. And, looking at this team, they end up coming away with a pretty solid win against, I think it was the Pelicans, right? Really big for playoff seeding. And Gobert wasn't on the floor. I would also argue that the Jaden McDaniels pulling an Amari Stoudemire, man, and just deciding to punch something. And now he's out for the season with a broken hand. I mean, that's another big loss for a guy that was very crucial to their depth and their rotation. So I think this, Anthony Edwards, we all know what he can do. He has a little bit of a streaky aspect once in a while. I know the couple games against the Lakers this year, he was not on. I think he went 4 of 16 in their last, matchup. And I think they interviewed him saying, he's like, yeah, I was cold as ice, man, that last game. So I need to step up my game in this play-in. Now, luckily, they did secure that 8 spot, which is why that last win was huge. So they do have a chance to kind of, even if they lose against the Lakers, which I think a lot of people expect. I obviously picking the Lakers here. When the T-Wolves only played them of the 3 times, I think only one of them was when AD and LeBron were both playing and healthy, and they got destroyed. So I'm picking the Lakers in this game, but, just kind of looking forward, the T-Wolves, man, they need to do some self-reflection and really get on the same page as a team, because you look back a year ago, this team had some of the best camaraderie that we saw in the Western Conference, if not the NBA. And we saw them pushing the Grizzlies, and you could argue that was the Pat Bev effect, man. He's now doing
I'm just about to say that, yeah.
But, it's not just one player, right? Kyle Anderson has to do his thing, right? Gobert's got to do his thing. And maybe this is a wake-up call moment for them to at least maybe sneak into that 8th spot. And facing off with the Nuggets. So I still got the Lakers in this one.
For sure, man. Like, I have no doubts the Lakers right now, post All-Star break, post trade, man, they're winning 60+% of their games right now. It's a brand new team. Mm-hmm. If you look at a 60+% winning team, that's like a top 4 seed. They've been playing like a top 4 seed in the second half of the season, and that's without Bron mostly. Like, Brown been out for most of those games, and they're winning 60+. With Brown, they could be high 60s, maybe
miraculous recovery.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Germany, man. Germany's a special place, man. Helped out Kobe's knee, helped out D-Wade, now Bron's ankle, man. So it's a miracle place, man. It's a miracle place. But, man, the Timberwolves, man, this is a team last year that was just surrounded by stupidity in the playoffs. basketball IQ, very low IQ plays in the playoffs when you're up a bunch of points. You're up 20 plus points and blowing multiple 20-point leads. That's just basketball IQ and be able to close games because you got to get those games done against the Memphis Grizzlies last year. But now this Rudy Gobert situation, this stupidity, man, it just follows this franchise. Like, you got the GM making stupid trades, getting Rudy Gobert, giving up your entire future. And now you got the guy they gave up your entire future for, punching one of your better role players, Kyle Anderson. And just calling him out for not getting blocked shots. Like, if you guys saw the entire argument, it was over Rudy Gobert not being able to get some block shots. Rudy saying, oh, I'm injured. That's why I'm not able to get some block shots. Told Kyle Anderson to get a rebound. And then he called him a bitch. I'm like, this is like basic, like, this is about basketball.
Yeah.
This ain't some off the court issue that's getting on the court. They're just talking about basketball and they're frustrated about the game right now and want to play some defense, get some rebounds, which is, I like that in my players. But punching a teammate over that?
Exactly.
Over that? That's just stupid, man. That's some caveman-like behavior, man. That's my good Rudy Gobert, man. He's an emotional man. This is a brother, we got to remember, this is a dude that cried about not being on an all-star team a couple of years back. He cried about not being picked on an all-star team. Now he got in his feelings about his teammate calling him out, and he probably, like, hearing the outside noise about you gave that much for Rudy Gobert. That was one of the worst trades ever. So I feel like that's also in his head, and maybe Kyle Anderson saying that might have triggered something in him. We went full fisticuffs. Now he's suspended in the biggest game of the season against this Los Angeles Lakers team.
That might help him. It might actually help.
You know what helps? It helps out the spacing.
Exactly.
But I feel that also fight caused McDaniels to have a little, as you said, on Mari Stoudemire situation, broke his hand. Now he's out the rest of the season. Who's the guy that was going to guard LeBron, who's their best perimeter defender. Him and Ant-Man out on the wings, man. These guys are two elite perimeter defenders, extremely good athletes, and now he's turned himself to a pretty good offensive player. So now, like, the Timberwolves, I give them no shot against this Lakers team. Like no shot at all, especially the Lakers playing right now. The motions are going on. Anthony Davis, my goodness, man. AD, it's time for your time to shine right now because Rudy Gobert, I guess their best defender in the post, he gone. You got Cat. He ain't no for defense.
Not a defender.
He ain't no for defense. So Anthony Davis, man, you got this perfect opportunity. I swear to God, the Lakers right now, man, they're just getting the perfect road for the playoffs, right? Even after that, but Memphis Grizzlies they're also injured, and right now they're getting some injury luck with McDaniels being out and Rudy Gobert being an idiot. So boom, they're playing multiple unhealthy. These are not full rosters right now, and right now the Lakers, 80 currently. There's an asterisk because he might get injured after one play.
You never know.
That is a massive asterisk.
It is a massive asterisk. Currently, they are healthy. D'Lo is back. LeBron is back. AD is back. Like, my God. Vanderbilt, like, they got their entire squad right now, and I'm ready for an ass whooping by the Lakers because they're going to definitely make the playoffs, man. Because this is going to be an ass whooping. This is one of the games I'm like, if Lakers lose this, man, I'll be shocked.
I agree.
Anthony, if they lose, it'd probably be an injury or something. You'd have to think. Well, yeah, that too. And would have to go unconscious from three. Him and Cat would have to go three crazy. I would see for them to lose. The thing about Minnesota that I think they need to do is, okay, say you do lose to the Lakers. I almost think the next game that would end up being the do or die game, that could be a indication on Anthony Edwards' future. Because if you're him, if you're just the entity of Anthony Edwards and you're looking around and you're like, okay, well, this point last year, I was coming off a pretty good season. We got into the playoffs. We gave Memphis everything they wanted, and we came up short. That's fine. That's just part of the growing pains of being he's number one overall pick, but that's just part of the growing pains. But then you're starting to look around like, okay, look, the guy we traded for is hitting teammates. You then have Kyle Anderson in the I heard a clip where he's like, dude, they got to choose between me and Gobert this summer. Like, well, apparently, bro, they're going to choose Gobert because no shade against Kyle Anderson, but they gave up all this capital for Gobert. So they're kind of just going to trend towards him. So if you're him, you're like, what am I doing? Like, what is my purpose? What is my role in this team? Of course, I'm the number one guy, but it's like, you traded away D'Angelo, which some would say that wasn't the greatest fit, but ever since he's been with LA, and maybe he just fits better with LA, he's been a really good player. You had Malik Beasley, or I think at one point, that was a couple of years ago maybe, but you're just starting to think, like, what is the direction of this team? And you don't want it to become a situation that you see in Washington currently with Bradley Beal, where it feels like after every season it's like, I don't know, man, I'm just kind of tired of, which I think is a bunch of BS. I love you, Bradley Beal, but you signed that max extension. You wanted the money. Now deal with what you got going on with the Wizards, bro. Like that's just what you got to deal with. But you don't want it to become that situation. Like there's a lot of situations with the league or with the Minnesota Timberwolves where if they miss the playoffs completely, Anthony Edwards, I don't think he's going to come out and say anything, but you got to understand he is represented by Clutch and they have a pulse on the league. Trust and believe there will be some feelers put out like, hey, I think my client, what would you think? Or start talking to GMs and be like, yo, what do you think about Ant here? Because he's too good of a player and he's going to continue to be great. Like that play, that sequence where he blocked CJ McCollum, got the ball, even though he turned it back over, but still had enough athleticism to get the ball back and get the and one. Like, come on, like you're wasting talent. You're wasting your talent. So, we're all in agreement. I think the Lakers are going to win that game, but I think whichever team they play, which we can talk about next with OKC and New Orleans, they need to win that game because I do not want to see the offseason storylines in Minnesota with Anthony Edwards if they lose both of those games. So, what are you guys' thoughts on New Orleans and OKC?
This one's tough. I think it's, once again, you got another injury-riddled team, right? Zion, once again, confirmed, Zoo. Finally, we can add a confirmation there.
Come on, man.
He is
you already
out
know.
to be playing. Not that anybody expected. I'm pretty sure it was 99% sure that was going to be the case. Brandon Ingram, I think we mentioned this last week or a couple podcasts ago that, he's been carrying this team towards the end, kind of doing what Levine has been doing for the Bulls a little bit. Zoo, I'll give him a bit of a shout-out right there. Increasing his points per game on a team that, has really needed CJ McCollum to step up and do something. And I don't know if you guys have been seeing anything different than I have, but I have not seen that when it comes to the New Orleans Pelicans. So, the Thunder, cute stories, Zoo. That's what they are. Yep. They're a cute story. They know they're a cute story. But, man, Josh Giddey and Shea, it's a solid duo. I mean, Giddey's pretty efficient from the field for being his age, and we know what Shea can do. And we've obviously shouted out Lou Dort a decent amount as well. I think this is kind of a pick'em game, but I'm just going to go with the Pelicans because they actually have one of the highest win margin rates in the league at home this year. They're top 8. So just having that home court advantage against a team that is so inexperienced and young, I'm going to hand this to the Pelicans facing off with the Wolves. So you got the battle of the injuries, man, and I do have the T-Wolves making out of it just because of a virtuoso Anthony Edwards performance. I'm going to believe in him like you were saying. Ant needs to do that, and I'm believing him for that game. So I have the Wolves locking up that 8 spot with the Lakers in at 7.
Interesting, man. Who I want to win? SGA, man, because he's put up an MVP season. Like, we got to put this guy in the MVP conversation. He's putting up 35-5 and bring this Thunder's team to the play-in tournament, man, is no easy feat. This is the youngest team in the NBA. Youngest team in the NBA. This team's less than 23 years old, man, based on the average age. That is incredible. And to be able to win that young without the number 2 overall pick, man, props to this franchise, man. Props to them, man. It's a crazy thing, man. They're 40-42, and my Bulls are 40-42, but there's different stories over there, man. One's rising. One's rising to become a future playoff contender, and I'm projecting championship contender. Another team is just going downhill, man. I said it. Championship contender. I'm saying it right now, man. The Oklahoma City Thunder. Oh, yes. Oh, I love the young core, man. Like, I'm telling you, there's something about that Presti Magic. Every guy he touches turns into freaking gold, man. And, like, he doesn't really miss guys. And I'm looking at this Pelicans team, man. Brandon Ingram, as you mentioned, man, this guy's a bona fide perennial all-star when he's healthy. Obviously, this year he struggled with injuries along with Zion, the Band-Aid himself again. So this team got to pick up the slack again, or without their super max or their max contract guy, $200 million man again. CJ McCollum not having the best season, man. His efficiency in the 43%, like that's not that good in the modern NBA when you got efficiencies. Guys shooting 47, 48% from the field. So CJ got to up that efficiency in the playoffs. BI, obviously, he's going to do BI things, and I don't think he's going to have any problems against this Oklahoma City Thunder team. But man, Lou Dort, this is your time to shine, boy.
That's true.
This dude, I still remember this dude guarding James Harden as a young buck, man. Because this guy, his physicality, they allow more physicality in the playoffs. So you got to be physical with BI, man. BI is more of a finesse guy, even though he's a lot taller than you. be more physical to him, bother him. Like KD struggles with physicality, man. We saw it last year when the Boston Celtics, man, were just pushing them, man.
Yep.
Like Grant Williams, big body, baby. Same thing with Lou Dort. They have the similar big body frame with similar speed, and you just got to bother BI. And if you slow down BI, I ain't worried about this Pelicans team, man. Because like Valanciunas, man, okay, whatever, man. If he's gonna drop 25 and 10 and beat us, okay, I'll live with that. But I'm not living with BI going off from those BI streets because he could drop 40, man.
Mhm.
Like this guy's a perennial scorer. This guy's turned out to be the best player from his draft class. This guy's a bona fide bucket. Like he's like KD Jr., man. This guy is legitimately like KD Jr., a 6'9", less than 200-pound man, but this guy's a skilled assassin, and even though he's a skinny dude, he's a pretty strong dude too. But the key is Lou Dort, man, and I'm going with the upset pick, man. OKC Thunder, baby.
Wow.
I'm going with the OKC Thunder. I'm going with this roster, man. Jalen Williams, the physicality on defense. Yeah. I really like the phicality on defense.
So you have Thunder Wolves matching up in that second game. Man. Who do you have coming out of that one?
Two franchises. I'm just like, man, one's a franchise run perfectly well, but I feel like there's still a year away too, even though SGA is having an all-time season. But man, the Timberwolves drama, man, that's gonna be annoying. Man. Like psychologically based on team chemistry, like what happens when Rudy Gobert blows a coverage and you see the team looking at each other, man? Like if they get down big and they start pointing fingers, Kyle Anderson is part of the big rotation right now. So him and Rudy Gobert, he's already talking about, Rudy, man, he's not the biggest fan of Rudy, talking about him picking him or Rudy. Defensive chemistry in the play in when it's single game elimination, man. Wow.
Against a potential, future MVP in Shea.
Yeah, like you got SGA who's averaging over 30 points a game, and I really want to see him in high leverage games where maybe they allow more physicality, and he relies on getting to the free throw line. So his ability to get the free throw line, I'm like, it's gonna be a little harder in the playoffs because the refs allows you to play a little more on the defensive side of things to make the basketball a little more competitive for the defense. So my, it's gonna be tough. I'm going with team chemistry, man. OKC Thunder, baby.
Wow.
Welcome to the playoffs, man. Welcome to the playoffs. They remind me a lot of the young Grizzlies team. Remember that young Grizzlies team that made the play, that beat the Warriors, surprisingly.
Warriors.
And made it into the play-in team, and they showed competitive. Ja Morant balled out, even though his teams got whooped. SGA, I feel like this is an opportunity to get some playoff action, and he puts up like 30-point games in the playoffs. That will establish himself as a perennial all-NBA caliber player. So, man, oh, man, I can't believe
you got the Thunder locking in the 8.
I'm going with Sam Presti's Thunder roster, man, because that's what it is. Sam Presti's Thunder.
I think you could also parallel a little bit to our expectations of, or maybe, I guess, to what you're expecting to see from Shea, right? You want to see him in those high leverage games.
Yep.
That's kind of what we were expecting to see from Ant last year, right? Obviously, his numbers, he wasn't putting up 32 a game, but that's because it is still Karl Anthony Towns' team, right? He's been there his entire career. But I think we had the same thing. Like, we want to see Ant in big games. Let's see what he can actually do. And, obviously, they took the Grizzlies pretty seriously in that.
They could have won
6 games, I think.
Yeah, 6 games. And it wasn't just Ant. Obviously, they probably have a more well-rounded team. Take Gobert out of the picture last year, right? Obviously.
Oh, man. They had some dogs on defense, man.
They did. They did.
I've never seen Ja Morant struggle more in my entire life because he was shook offensively. Very passive, like making bad decisions, a lot of turnovers. Exactly. The shot was really off. So slowing down Ja Morant like that in the playoffs was very impressive.
And I think the T-Wolves could take something from that again last year, right, and try and really focus that on Shea if that ends up being the matchup. Because I do think the Pelicans-Thunder game is a pick-em. I'm just favoring the team that has actually been one of the best home teams in the league this year. So that's the only difference for me.
Yeah, I think, too, with the Pelicans, they also have guys that can get super hot with, like, the Trey Murphy guy can get really, really hot.
Sure.
McCollum can get really, really hot. So at home, like you said, P-Bush, that's a pick 'em. I'm probably just going to side with the Pelicans because they're going to have the home court advantage. And, with OKC, even though I do feel like they're going to be a whole lot more freer, they're going to be just throwing up any type of shots, playing with house money because that's what they technically are doing. I'm going to side with the Pelicans. I almost think the Pelicans would have more of a want to, even though Minnesota, assuming they lose to the Lakers, would have home court advantage. I just kind of feel like how the Pelicans lost the last game, because this really could have been the Pelicans. I think, and I don't know how all the seeding went, but I think it was supposed to be if the Pelicans won, they maybe would have been playing Lakers in that 7-8. So I think they're going to have a lot more get back for that game. And, with Gobert coming back, you just don't know how that synergy on defense, that unity and like team huddles, all that type of stuff that they talk about, that goes within the game. I don't know how that's going to work out. I'm also interested to see with the Pelicans, if BI, like say in the OKC game, he gets hot, like I wonder then if it's just going to be like a Ant-Man versus BI type duel in that, elimination game. And then, like I said, with the shooters, and as much as we dog CJ with him being with Dame, and he didn't do much with Portland, he's still got that playoff-ish experience to where he could just settle the team down and get it going. And I don't know who would be that second person with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I know you got Karl-Anthony Towns, but he's very up and down to me. Like, to me, if he's not hitting his three-point shot, he's kind of really ineffective. So unless he's, he's kind of got a, I guess you could say Trey Murphy effect, where if he's hitting his three, he's kind of unstoppable. But if because I don't see Cat being like, let me just get down on the post and get a quick bucket, or I don't see him being like, let me get a couple of defensive rebounds and change the momentum of the game. So so I think the Pelicans have that at least solidified second scorer in CJ McCollum, and I think they're going to have a little bit more motivation to get that get back with that second game. So I'm picking the Pelicans to get out of it, to get that 8 seed, but it would shock me because the Western Conference this entire year has been, because all these teams were only separated by a few losses. So it is not shocking if any team from the Western Conference gets to that 7 and 8, because that's just how the conference has been all year.
Which speaks exactly to why we all picked a different team to come out. I had Wolves, you had Thunder, and you had Pelicans. And I think it could be any one of the three. I think it's just going to come down to experience and chemistry there. And multiple of those teams have injury issues, camaraderie issues, etc. So
I can make this very quick with the Eastern Conference. I think Miami just has Atlanta's number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with Trey. I think that is a shut and close case. That'll be the most shocking out of all of it. Even I almost think that'd be more shocking than the Lakers, because I don't think Trey plays well at all against the Heat. I really don't. I think the Heat has his number, bro.
Physicality on defense, man. Yeah. Your guys' favorite player, Bam Adebayo, I'm pick and rolls, man. This dude is one of the rare bigs who could switch pick and rolls, where Trae Young loves getting the big on him and then oop it. But Bam is a guy that can play him and block the oop with his length on defense. So he can stop Capella and guard Trae Young. Obviously, Capella can only catch lobs and dunk the ball because he can't do much else. So Bam Adebayo is the key to stop a little ice Trae, man. Because last year, man, he was ice Trae, but ice on the bad side of things, man, because he was god-awful. He was absolutely god-awful. Like,
shot 35% in that series.
He had to look himself. He had to look himself in the mirror and be like, "Yo, like this defense, like it was just a bad matchup, and I got shut down." And I don't think anything changed. Even with the acquisition of DeJounte Murray to give Trae a second ball handler, like the fit this year's been like, it's like a little more your turn, my turn. Trae likes the ball in his hand. Makes sense because he's a traditional point guard that dominates the basketball. So obviously they got a new coach in. Like, Atlanta has been definition of mediocrity this year, man.
Yeah.
Like, they've been the definition of being 500
dead even
like the entire year. All year, man. Consistently
they're
500.
They're missing like Herder a lot too. Guys like that.
They let him go. They didn't let him go for nothing, which is quite surprising. Like,
is Bogdanovich playing this year? Has he been playing?
Yeah, Bogdanovich has been playing. Yeah. Bogdanovich has been playing, but they fired their coach. They fired their coach, so like obviously they had some significant issues in the locker room with Trae and the coach. And I think Quinn Snyder's to take this team to beat a Miami Heat team, who I have as a sleeper team this year, man.
Every year.
I'm telling you, Jimmy Butler is just special, man.
He's a dog.
He's the best, one of the best defenders on the team. He's their primary ball handler. He's their primary scorer. He's the leader of the team. Like, legit, he's the face of the franchise. And leading this team to multiple conference championship appearances, man, is no easy feat. It is not an easy feat, especially if you look at the roster outside of Bam. Like, the roster, I don't think is that talented when you got a bunch of G League dudes and undrafted dudes. Like,
plus Hero,
like plus like Hero's only lottery pick. Like we got Gabe Vincent, Max Strus. Like, Duncan Robinson doesn't even play anymore, even though they pay the brother $90 million. Like, And he got fat ass Kyle Lowry. I got to shout out to that. Got carry
Yeah,
his
no,
fat
Of
ass.
course.
Man,
All that comment was
all I gotta say, this Miami Heat got a lot of dead cap, man. They got $50 million of not, of just not. They just
And
like,
they still find a way to be
Yeah.
relevant.
yeah, they're 44.
That's a
and
Spoelstra
38.
thing too.
Yeah, 44 and 38. Like the
Yes.
record, I think this year has been, it's basically been better than what their point differential says, because they're one of the rare teams who made the playoff or play in / playoffs. They have a negative point differential.
Really?
They have a negative 0.3 differential. Even the Chicago Bulls and the Toronto Raptors have a positive differential.
Interesting.
So that's a
an
red
anomaly.
flag. That's a red flag right there. Because if you look at every team,
Yeah.
even the Timberwolves, they're dead even. They're 0.0 point differential. So they're the only team in the playoff and playing tournament that has a
Wow.
negative point differential. So that's, I'm like, ooh, like that's not a good sign. That's the one thing I'm like, okay, that stat scares me
Yeah.
a lot actually.
But they're also
that's
at home, and that's
Yeah.
huge for Miami, man.
Well, I'm not worried about Atlanta. I'm not worried
Yeah.
about Atlanta. They're gonna
Oh,
make
you're talking like, down
yeah,
the road.
like obviously down the road.
Further- yeah, down the
Boston.
road.
That's a Boston. Obviously had a really good regular.
That's an
season.
interesting matchup, man. Miami's not going to be scared.
Yeah,
They're not going to be
historically,
scared.
they've played each other a lot in the playoffs. So good luck,
Yeah.
Miami. Good luck, Celtics. It's going to be one of those dog fights. But man, oh man, Miami. Yeah, because Atlanta. Come on, ATL.
Yeah.
No.
No, I
No
agree.
brainer, man. No brainer.
I have nothing to
For
add
sure.
there. I think you covered it. It's just Jimmy Butler, man. He ends
So
up becoming a different breed in the playoffs too. Obviously, we know what he
Yeah.
can do. But I think one of his biggest assets, though, is to get teams in foul trouble too. He's so good at getting to the
great
line
getting a foul line.
that he's going to annoy the hell out of DeJounte Murray or whoever ends up guarding him on that Hawks
Mhm.
team. And honestly, we saw him wreak havoc against the Celtics last year and nearly one T-Mac 3-point shot away. man,
Oh,
from
that would have been one of the
So,
greatest shots ever, man.
that would have probably been one of my favorite shots to ever see live. But yeah, I mean, I got them in that game. I'll lock it up against the Celtics as a 7 seed. And then
For
you
sure.
got the Bulls Raptors, man. And you want to
Oh,
talk about
boy.
another team, Zoo, that has two guys that just kind of play your turn, my turn, man. They've always done that. They don't really have the greatest chemistry in the world. They have an unspoken, like, okay, now it's your turn, my turn, like you were saying. But the fluidity of the offense just hasn't been there.
Nope.
It's partially the point guard issue, right? We've talked about that ever
Yeah.
since Lonzo got hurt. But Pat Bev came in, gave them a little bit of a jolt of life, pushed them in to hold this 10 spot. But I'm looking at this Raptors team, man, and I think OG Anunoby and just everybody on that team with their length is going to cause the Bulls a lot of problems and can cause most teams problems. And once again, if the Hawks lose that game against the Heat and the Raptors win, I think the Raptors take it over the Hawks because I think they would end up just annoying the hell out of Trae Young with just their length. They could put OG Anunoby. He can guard Trae Young if he wanted to, right? They could put Scotty Barnes, right, et cetera. So, I do have the Raptors coming out against my Bulls, unfortunately. They just have owned us this year, man. And there's not too much more to say there. Zoo, I feel like because you're laughing, you might actually agree with me here.
Yeah, this matchup is not well.
No.
Like DeMar DeRozan has been god awful against the Toronto Raptors this season. Just look at these stats, man. One game he put up 13 points. Another game he put up 9 points.
Yep.
9 points. Like the dude just doesn't show up. And another game he put up 20. So his best game is 20 points. The way the Toronto Raptors plays him, they play a lot of double team. They force someone else to beat them. So like DeMar's Zach LaVine might have taken over as the leading scorer at the end of the year, but DeMar was still the go-to guy in the clutch. So if they're going to shut down DeMar DeRozan like that, they're going to need a massive performance from Zach LaVine as far as offense.
And Vooch.
And Vooch. Like the Bulls surprisingly this year finished 5th in defensive efficiency.
Really? I didn't know
man.
that.
That is
Pat Bev
absolutely.
bump.
That's
Oh,
Pat Bev,
Pat-
man. Yeah.
It was actually great because watching this roster sometimes the rotation is sometimes a little dumb, but maybe the rest of the NBA just not as good as like efficiency wise as the Chicago Bulls. So that was quite surprising. But offensively, they're bottom 10, so like very mediocre offense. And as you pointed out that the Raptors' length on the wing position, man, it's going to really bother DeMar and Zach LaVine. So like obviously, I love Vooch, man. Vooch is one of those guys that on paper, dang, 18 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 50% from the field. But man, the impact is just somewhat nothing, man. I don't get it. Like,
He's not a good defender.
Yeah, if you look at Vucevic on paper, he's probably a top 5 center. based on his numbers. This guy is leading one of the top 5 guys in the NBA in double doubles. Like he's up there with Jokic and Sabonis, and those dudes getting 20 points, 10 rebounds. The dude's a rebounding machine. Obviously, defensively, he's going to get exploited a lot because, man, high pick and roll, man, barbecue chicken.
No lateral quickness.
Barbecue chicken, man. Like, Vucevic was not blessed. He's blessed with those Carlos Boozer lateral defense, man. Not there. It's just non-existent, man. He can't do anything about it. He actually tries on defense, but he's just not quick enough based on his body type against these quick guards. So, my goodness. But the Toronto Raptors, though, man, it would be so sad for the Bulls to lose to this roster because they ain't that good either. Because this is a team that we forget at the trade deadline was looking to sell, man. Obviously, they didn't get the price that they wanted. So if we're gonna lose to a team like this legendary draft with Victor Wembanyama come up, we worked so hard to be mediocre, 40-42, just to lose to the Toronto Raptors with nobody. I'm sorry to Toronto. Okay, if I lose to the Bucks, understandable. They got the Greek Freak.
Well,
they
yeah,
got Drew Holiday.
That's not how the play-in works,
Yeah, the play-in doesn't work like that, though.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you,
Bucks
man.
aren't making the damn play-in, man.
Yeah,
There's a reason you got to play in to play the real guys.
I can
That's the whole
accept
point.
the Bulls having their season ended by a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of these all-timers. But if we lose to Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, come on. Van Fleet.
Van Vliet.
Champions.
They are champions. That is true. They are champions.
Kawhi is a champion. Those guys riding his hotel.
Pascal, all right, we don't need to get into all
we'll derail it, but Van Vliet wasn't a bum in that series either, bro. Like, come on, man. He stepped up in that series.
Him and
but
Pascal both earned their futures.
All I gotta say, I like my guards scoring over 38% of their shots. So I am gonna fade the Bulls. I am fading the Bulls.
You're fading the Bulls.
I mean, it is telling that the. What did you say?
Fading the Bulls.
Oh, I thought you said something. You will say that the Raptors being -5. I was actually kind of shocked because, to Zoo's point, the Raptors just like if you just put, you know how they always say like if you have like a street, like if you're playing street ball and you just line guys up in a line, like you're gonna get Raptors players picked, but you're gonna pick probably a majority of some of the Bulls guys first, and you're gonna be confident in your team. I kind of just feel like with the Raptors, they have a collective team that's good, but you know, Pascal doesn't like super scare me. Scotty's been up and down this year. OG Anunoby is a nice two-way player, but I mean, you're not expecting OG to be 25 and 12. Like he's just going to be a nice 3-and-D guy. And Van Vliet, like you said, he's not the greatest percentage guy, even though they are champions. So it was interesting to see, like, just looking at the setup. Okay, -5, like, you know, and the Bulls have like, you know, they have two guys that can go get buckets. But I think maybe with DeRozan is just like the homecoming aspect of it. Like he spent his entire time in Toronto, and it's just like he just doesn't have it with him. Yeah, he just doesn't have it against that team because he just has he's probably just more emotional. He just has more emotions in the game because he spent most of his career there. So then you're going to be depending on Zach LaVine to be the primary guy to just go get buckets, which I mean, that's a tough ask. That's a very tough ask.
That's something I got a little hopeful.
That's a tough ask, though.
He's been cooking at the second half of after the trade.
Minimal playoff experience.
Last year was a bad performance because he was injured. And
wasn't that his first time making the playoffs?
Yes, it was.
Okay, there you go.
Did he ever make? He didn't make it with Minnesota.
Never once.
Stop it. Mediocre franchise, man. Mediocre franchise.
Was he there with Kat, or was Kat after him?
No, he was there with Cat. They made it once with Jimmy Butler.
They were just too young, I guess. Yeah.
But LaVine was gone.
Yep.
Because that was the trade.
Yep.
Yeah, so some people could be like, well, if you're just talking about a one-game scenario and you got two guys that can go get buckets the best, you would pick them. But, you know, you're in the North. Drake may make an appearance. It may make, you know, DeRozan a little bit more shook. Might have him shaking in his boots. No, I'm just playing. I would pick Toronto just because they have the home court advantage, and Vegas has them at -5. Because I actually thought when I first saw that was going to, or not first saw, I mean, I knew this was going to be the matchup for a while. I kind of thought it was going to be like a -2, -1 just because of I was just thinking about talent on both sides, but when I saw it's -5, I was like, maybe Vegas knows something that I don't. So I
Raptors
probably would
also
just
a
pick
great
with
home
Toronto.
team.
Yeah, that might be what it is. Home crowd, their home crowd is up there with OKC too. Like I was talking about on last pod. So, and then like I don't think it would be that Miami Toronto. I don't think that's or not Miami Toronto. I guess
Atlanta.
I don't know. In that one.
In
I
Atlanta,
don't know.
Keep that in mind.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, I don't know. Because Trey game like season on the line, he might just go crazy. DeJounte could lock up one of their whoever gets hot with Toronto, DeJounte could lock them up. And then if you're, he gets Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta is definitely like the polar opposite in terms of like home court advantages, but get some lobs going to Collins. Like you never know. Bogey gets hot from 3. It wouldn't be crazy if Atlanta won that game. I wouldn't be shocked just because they're in Atlanta.
I think it's a pick 'em.
Yeah, it's closer to a pick 'em, I feel like, because in that, I guess stratosphere of a game, Trey is the biggest star. So I could, it's the same thing with Luka, kind of his little thing that he was doing last. Now I can call it a little thing because it almost feels like last year what he did in the playoffs is
that almost outlier, man. I remember last year saying it was a miracle that roster was able to make it. And now this year, obviously, don't even make the play.
But hey, they got the 10th pick, so whatever. But congratulations, Mavericks.
Watch them get Wembanyama, man.
Yeah, they'll get.
I swear to God, I'm gonna break something if that shit happens, man. Oh my God, you can't.
Come on.
The NBA cannot reward this team for openly tanking like no other team I've seen ever before.
They won't be rewarded. Trust and believe, they won't be rewarded for that. Because they're already got an investigation on them. So the Wembanyama dream is over.
That'll cover any future Wembanyama. Will be like, hey, we investigated and they weren't doing this. I still get Wembanyama.
I still think it's gonna be he's gonna go to like Charlotte, like where nobody wants him to go. He's gonna go to like Charlotte or Detroit. That's where he's going to end up going. Yeah, he's gonna go there, and Detroit has the best odds because they were on a 20-game losing streak.
It's good enough, man. It's too good already.
That's true.
Yeah. But like I said, I do think with the potential Atlanta Toronto game, I do see Atlanta maybe squeaking that out. And then going into the playoffs, I think they will get annihilated by the Bucks. And then for that 7-2 matchup, I am interested with Miami and Boston because Miami would not be scared. And they do not have the firepower. They do not have anything in their favor outside of it's like a bully. Like they have the big kid on the block energy. And Boston, even though they have the 2 killers on their side and they have a little bit more depth than last year, it just would not shock me if
at least 6 games
after the first game, Miami's up 1-0. It just wouldn't shock me because that's just how Miami does. And Spoelstra, I think he could potentially coach circles around Missoula. I think he could go circles
first time coach. Yeah, first time coach.
I think he could definitely do that. So it's going to be interesting, man, for sure. And I will say with Boston, I want to see how Rob Williams plays too, because if he can stay healthy, I think that's going to change a lot of people's opinions. But we'll be talking about that later on.
He annoyed Bam.
Stay healthy. Yeah, same. It's like I said at the beginning of the podcast, man. Playing is so interesting, man. It's I've come around on it. I do like this. It's drumming up interest. For me, I kind of think the NBA maybe did this for a reason to sell more ads because that's just how my mind works. But it is a cool thing for the fans, and it keeps the majority of the NBA fans. Yes, it keeps you engaged. And I think what's going to be cool is, you have big market teams in the play-in like the Lakers, and you're going to have that whole fan base, and you got big market teams that are already in the playoffs. So we're going to be definitely tuned in and looking at who is going to advance, who's going to be defeated, because trust and believe once this playing is over, these matchups, especially in the West with the Clippers and the Suns, that is going to be one hell of a matchup that I'm going to be ready to talk about and all the storylines that come from that, man. I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
Man. They got the dub, man, because they could have tanked. They could have tanked that game.
They were about to lose that game, too. Yep. They were about to be a 7 seed, which is insane. And I think if they would have lost, it would have ended up being a Clipper-Laker play-in, which would have been, talk about ratings, that would have been insane. So shout out to the Clippers for making that the 4-5. So that's going to be a very interesting season we could talk about. And of course, you can watch us on YouTube at Quantro Knows. You can also follow us on Bullheaded_pod on Instagram, TikTok, BullheadedX64. All of the audio mediums with Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, the whole nine. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are out.